Sveltekit-UI is a free NPM package which includes many components and helpful functions for developers to efficiently code projects. Sveltekit-UI uses almost no third-party packages. We value simplicity, high quality, and visual appeal. We try and keep things fully up to date and use Svelte 5 runes under the hood. Sveltekit-UI is inspired by many of the principles of object-oriented programming, such as encapsulating logic and hiding complexity and only exposing values and methods that are needed. Components can easily build upon each other by using other components, such as buttons, text inputs, and your own custom components within them. Let's look at some example code. You can npm install Sveltekit-UI into any Svelte project, but we've made it easy to start off from a template by using the terminal command npx create Sveltekit-UI site. Let's look at the example component. This is a simple counter component. The code is in the components folder in a folder named example. We split the component's JavaScript and HTML into two files, index.svelte.js and index.svelte. The index.svelte.js file should export a function called create the component's name manager. So in this case, create example manager. The manager function contains all the JavaScript code needed for the example component. We define state and derived variables at the top of the component. We create a function called init, which we call right away when the function is instantiated. In the init function, we'll set any variables and prepare any child components. Lastly, it returns any values and methods useful to expose to the parent and to be used in our index.svelte component, which will focus on the HTML and CSS of the component. Typically, you will instantiate your managers and any children from a page load. When we load the home page, we import and use the home page component we made. We define a variable called homePageManager and set it to the called createHomePageManager function. We then pass the homePageManager variable into the manager prop of the homepage component. Let's look at the createHomePageManager, where we use our example component. We define example manager as a variable at the top. In the init function, we set it to the createExampleManager function. In this case, we pass a count number, which we'll use as the starting count. We also pass a function into the onPassedLimit key, which internally we will call when the count is greater than 10. The example manager has a method called resetCount, so we can also call that from a different component. We have a reset button defined in the home page. The button component has an on-click callback function, so when we click the button, we will call the resetCount method on the example manager variable. We return the managers using getter properties. Shifting over to the HTML and CSS, we pass the manager into the home page component. So in the home page index.svelte, we can use our prepared manager. We define manager in the script tags from the props. You can write any custom HTML and styling you want here. In this case, we are using other child components, so we simply pass the manager.contentManager into the content component and the manager.exampleManager into the example component. Content and button are part of the Sveltekit-UI library, so we import them from there. We import our custom example component from its relative path from the lib folder. The reset button can be placed anywhere. Here, we demonstrate passing it as a snippet into the example index.svelte file. For snippets, we also want to define those in props. Here we place the code from the extra stuff snippet next to our increment button. A project worth mentioning that works well with Sveltekit-UI is a project called Contibase. There are tools there that can help you create a logo and the assets for your project in just a few minutes. You can easily set up your email there to send and receive email from a custom domain name. You can also use storage, data tables, function builders, and create content. Here, I generate an editable blog post in one click. We can then call the Contibase API from my project's pluspage.server.js file. Within the coin component, we use other components such as the audio, image, content, and more. There are a million coding frameworks and styles. I've personally found Sveltekit to be my favorite. I found intertwining HTML and JavaScript and prop drilling through layers of custom components can get messy as the component's complexity increases. I find it much nicer to have all your logic accessible under a defined manager variable. So within Svelte, I've leaned into this coding style. This started as me building a few reusable components for my side project, and as I built more and more, I eventually separated them out into their own private NPM package to use amongst all my side projects. I'm happy enough with the current state to allow others to use Sveltekit-UI and help them build their own projects. You can check the Sveltekit-UI website for documentation, and for even deeper questions, you can look through the code on the NPM website. If this style connects with you, I encourage you to give it a try. Thank you for checking out Sveltekit-UI, and good luck coding your projects.